following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Nerd, Genesys RPG Podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games. A show in which we, your three hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both the players and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning, and with me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Mr. Christopher Holmes. How are you doing, homie?
I am doing really good. I'm glad that Stefan is back joining us again this week.
Yes. Yay. Yes, after a little hiccup one day late for recording, but at least I'm here.
That's right, because of so you fed the hamsters, so your Canadian internet is working.
Yes, my Canadian internet, Sorry, It's sometimes slow.
Okay, we got you. Oh, no, well, that's my Minnesotan accent, don't you know? But it's so close, so. Anyway, yes. So hey, got to give you guys a wood pellet smoker grill update. I have smoked and grilled 20 pounds of frickin' ribs in the last couple weeks.
Nice.
Did 8 pounds the other day. Did 12 pounds a couple weeks ago for my buddies on Saturday night. Oh my gosh, I'm getting good at it, guys.
So you're saying you're not really following the Weight Watchers diet?
Have you seen the caricature you made of me? But anyways,
I've been standing next to you. I can't wrap my arms around your thigh.
Well, there you go. Anyways, I figured everybody was just on the edge of their seats going, what did Chris cook recently?
That's it. So 20 pounds of ribs.
Yeah, but I do have to give props to my buddy Drew. He is my Meat Master consultant.
Aha.
So, yeah, he has one of those shirts that says meat is murder, tasty, tasty murder. So, which is awesome. But anyways, dude, good. What kind of news do we have, Stefan?
All right, let's get to important role-playing stuff this time.
Yes.
So,
this is not a culinary show.
No, not yet. So, we've got, of course, Con on the Cob, which is the Nerds International, almost like official con that we've been attending the last couple of years.
Yep. It's our annual get-together. I mean, annual.
Annual, yes. We're very anal about it. So it's creeping up on us slowly but surely, and it's a month earlier than last year. So it runs October 3rd to the 6th, inclusively, in Richfield, Ohio, just south of Cleveland.
Yep.
So, so far we've got at least a dozen of us being there, almost like the usual suspects, and we hope he's saving money like crazy to have our other co-host from the other podcast from down under, Paris Conte, to come up here and drop by.
Cool.
And he's going to try and make it to the con, and then his brother lives in Montreal, which is my old hometown. So,
cool.
Two birds in one stone kind of thing. So he'll be able to visit his brother at the same time.
Nice.
So hopefully he'll be able to make it. Mm-hmm. And today I just got also in my email the bundle of holding, the latest one called the Corporation RPG. It's its own RPGs. It's not Genesys associated, but it would be a great resource reading a little bit through it. It's still, corporations, 5 large corporations that I read real quickly, vying, of course, for power and with, augmented agents fighting each other in a dystopian future. Easily adaptable to Genesys with the Shadow of the Beanstalk, of course.
Sounds like any other cyberpunk setting to me.
A little bit, maybe with a more
evil, bad. Yeah.
Well, that's it. But it seems like in this one, you're really maybe more information about all the corporate machinations between each other.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
there'll be some good nuggets there, and it's only $9.95 for the starter collection.
Sweet.
So we'll include the link in the show notes too.
Okay. Perfect.
And don't forget to mention Con on the Cob Kickstarter, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yes.
Yep,
Of course,
I'll
the
have that.
Kickstarter.
I'll have that. I found the link to that, and I'll have that in the show notes as well. That's got, what would you say, 10 days left?
10 days left at least. I've backed it to. I've already had my badge, so that's I didn't have to buy it. But I at least backed it to the level where you need to encourage a young person, to attend.
Yeah.
Basically buying their ticket if they can't afford
cool.
it. So there's
Children
stuff like that
attend
you
for
can do.
free.
Nice.
Yeah, but there's some where if they get older, they still maybe have to buy a ticket. But
Cool. Yeah, so it's it's May 20th right now that we're recording, so it probably goes till May 30th. Just to let you guys know.
Yep.
Yeah.
They've already met all their original their goal.
Yeah, they're minimally funded at least. So now it's just gravy.
Nice.
Gravy for the ribs. I mean, for the Kickstarter.
The prize,
And
man.
one of our Nerds International alumni over at the Wild Eye Podcast is actually going to be one of the guests of honor this year.
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
right?
Harrison
Yep.
Hunt is going to
He's
be a
coming
gaming
back.
guest of honor from England.
Yeah, he's coming back from the ponds and jumping over the pond.
Nice. Look forward to seeing him again. That'd be great.
Yep. That'll be awesome. Very good. And I think that's it I had for the news, I think.
Okay. And then how are we going to do listener feedback this time, Tony? I think you're changing it up on us a little.
Yeah, we're going to incorporate some of our listener feedback in the middle of our main show topic because it's kind of pertinent to specific things in the books of Genesis, Part 1.
There we go. And the name of our episode is?
We are entitling this episode 33, Craftapalooza.
Nice.
There we go.
we are crafting in this show, and I just wanted to let our listeners know that, and for feedback, next time we will be doing next show. We've decided to jump in with a great idea that Stefan had the other day. We're going to do a mailbag show. So we're gonna we have some rather long exchange emails and messages back and forth with some of our prolifically written listeners, and
Yes.
I'd like to share every thought of theirs. So we're gonna do it in a whole show.
There we
I can't
go.
believe we have enough mail that we could do a whole show. Thank
There
you,
we go.
everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
send us
rose to the
more.
challenge.
Yes, you all did. All 10 of you out there, or 5, or however many we have out
I
there.
think we're in double digits at least. So,
At least.
11sies, woohoo! All 11 of you. All right, so
Well, I'm done
No,
with supper.
actually-
I'm ready for dinner sometime. Oh,
so before we get over to the books of Genesis, though, we have another show segment.
yes, we
of course.
do. All right, let's get into it.
All right, welcome to 50 Pieces of Awesome. This is where Chris goes out to the dark web, or the gray web, or the light web, I don't know, and finds us something shadowy or interesting
Yes.
to
Sometimes it's a
chuck
sticky web.
something,
Yes.
maybe, and we'll maybe chuck some coin at it. So tell us what you got this time, buddy.
Well, actually, I went to the Matrix. No, not that Matrix, everybody. Though I did like John Wick 3 this weekend. Pretty freaking good movie. No, I went to, and I found the Shadowrun Genesis Edition by Paul M.N. Haksonen. I've got a Facebook link here. Also got a link, like a Google Drive version of it that has bookmarks. Because, wait, okay, so everybody just wait. This thing has 637 pages. Yes,
Weesh.
that was a 6 that I said. Yes, 637 pages of awesomeness. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot here. Everything is here. Creating a character. This is Shadowrun. I haven't played Shadowrun a whole lot. few sessions back in college, but
I've played when it came out in 1990. I bought the first edition. Way back when. So there's a lot of stuff that came out.
So if any of you enjoyed that movie Bright on with Will Smith that came out last year on Netflix, and you want to say, hey, I want to play in that, that's what this is. That's effectively Shadowrun. There's a neat section that is in there for contacts. Kind of makes me think of the factions, the way they did it kind of in Shadows of the Beanstalk, almost as a currency. But they have a connection scale and an influence scale. I think the connection scale is like how much you may trust them. Influence is, how much you may have done for them and whatever. Pretty interesting. Okay. And they list out like 50 plus contacts. Everything from, a firefighter to a gambler to, a ID manufacturer, a mechanic, a janitor. I mean, all kinds of stuff.
A wizard!
A wizard! Yeah.
Wizard!
Exactly. So, there's that. They have half the frickin' book almost is weapons, armor, cyber gear. 40 pages plus on that. Gear and tools, drugs and substances, and, vehicles. I mean, almost 300 pages. 270 pages on all that stuff.
Yeah. I remember the Shadowrun editions, they had supplements coming out, and they had books on weapons and armor, and then one on vehicles, and all with the blurbs, sometimes from Shadowrunners who, this vehicle is crap, or this gun is super. This one will.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And the cyber gear, and the cyber gear will definitely help flesh out what little there is in the Shadows of the Beanstalk.
Yeah,
Two thumbs up from this guy.
It's sweet. And then they have about 20 pages on crafting, which is kind of nice, a nice theme. Our show tonight is going to be on that. And then they've got, and of course in Shadowrun, if you guys haven't, if you don't know, there is magic in Shadowrun. But they do have only Arcana and Primal in this. They don't have Divine Magic in it. But they do have something called an Essence Score, which is self-augmentation. So if you get like G-mods or cybernetics and whatever, there's a mechanic I think they added in here which will affect you casting magic. Which is
because that's what also part of Shadowrun core rules is that a wizard uses these essence points basically to power your spells or essence. But if you have cyberware, then it can reduce your pool.
Ah, nice. That's interesting. Now, there's also one more thing in here which I like, and of course, us as Dicky GMs enjoy spell mishaps. There's like 4 pages of it, and you roll a D100, and there are 100 different results.
Nice.
And sometimes these mishap tables, may have like maybe 20 or 30, right? With a range. No. There's 100 different mishaps that can happen. And then
this is amazing,
isn't it? Though
I'm just giving it the once over, and I noticed the merits and flaws section. I thought was amazing. The talents. Oh my God, the talents! There's so many talents in here.
Here we go.
Love it.
There is good stuff, and maybe talents you could pull into Shadows of the Beanstalk too.
Exactly. Just especially for the mechanics about net running and stuff, you can use.
Yeah, like I was just going to say, there's 30 pages on the Matrix and how to run in the Matrix, what they call the net. And there's a couple different actions. There's one called garbage in, garbage out. Now, me being a programmer, that means something to me. And, if you have, like, this algorithm, right, and if you're getting garbage coming into it, you're just going to get garbage coming out no matter how good your algorithm is, right? So that's a kind of a neat little, that kind of spoke to me there. There's things like setting a data bomb, disarming a data bomb. So pretty neat things there that could maybe evoke, more actions and make your net running more exciting.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Mm-hmm. I know. In later editions, you even came out with Shadowrun like source books for the riggers.
Yep. Yeah, that's what they call. That's what they call runners, right? And they're riggers.
No, you've got net runners. Those are actually the guys who run the net. But the riggers basically use their technology to control drones, especially.
Oh, okay.
Vehicles, any kind of vehicle that would have a cybernetic cybernetic connection. Whether it's a hopper vehicle, or a motorbike, or of course these drones. So I remember there's a couple of source books that came out just for the rigger, so lots of different options that they could.
Well, they call them deckers. Are deckers? Yeah. Deckers are the runners, right?
Right. The deckers, cyber decks. So for the decks.
Cool.
Because back then, when the first source book came out for Shadowrun, the first rule book, of course, all this technology about being wireless wasn't really all that common for us. So everyone had to basically still plug in. so you didn't have the wireless connections to the internet, even though it was.
I gotta play this. Holy fuck!
I mean, and there's like 40 pages on like Hong Kong and laws and stuff like this, and then the last 80 pages of the book are adversaries. I mean, 80 pages of adversaries. I mean. Well, there's you've got so much here.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they're inspiring from Shadowrun, you've got more than just human beings as adversaries.
Yeah,
I mean,
you have orcs
with magic coming back. Wow, with magic coming back, you can play orcs and elves, dwarves, as well as ogres as races,
trolls,
And then, of course, since magic came back, you've got dragons, you've got chimeras, you've got all kinds of these mythical creatures that are now back.
That's awesome. That is pretty cool. But I saw that and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I haven't we haven't pulled this into 50 Pieces of Awesome before. But yeah, I just want to say hats off to you. And I believe somebody did put in the bookmarks here. So this book was originally over 660 pages, but whomever put in the bookmarks, thank you for that.
Yeah. I can help.
That helps a lot. That helps out a lot. So,
right.
So there you go, Stefan.
Oh, there you go. So to you, Mr. Paul M.N. Harkonnen. Not Harkonnen. That's another sci-fi setting. Hack-Conson, we award you 50 Pieces of Awesome. Mystical Pieces of Awesome.
Right.
Maybe they're new yen.
Yeah, maybe new yen. Hopefully you're not allergic to new yen.
All right. So you want to get into the meat of this show then?
Yep.
All right. Okay, everybody, it's time to open up your books of Genesis. Thank you. Hey, see, got a little bit of stereo going on there. Thank you.
There you go.
My backup singer.
The harmonies were amazeballs.
Isn't that though? The harmonies.
Next show, all three of us, so it'll be a choir. The Holy Trinity? Okay, the Unholy Trinity?
Awesome. And then we won't have to worry about making the podcast anymore, because everybody will be like, we're done. No.
The three amigos then.
So, yes, open up your Realms of Terrinoth book, everybody, to page 112, page 113, if you are in a PDF like myself. And we're going to be talking about crafting. So we're going to talk about, the crafting process, what's needed, go through the rules. There are a couple sidebars here we want to talk about, and then there's some specifics for alchemy that we're going to go into. And we'll also mention, crafting in the ice and icebreakers in Android. Then we're going to go over some resources from the Star Wars RPG, where you can pull some of the information from as well. So let's kick this thing off. So what's involved? What do we need to craft something?
Well, Stefan, go ahead.
Well, first you need, the raw materials. If you're crafting a sword, of course, you need steel, or iron to start with, and other stuff. Then you, of course, you need your tools, your location, depending on the kind of thing that you're crafting. If you're just crafting something simple, and maybe something in the wilderness with some wood, a little sharp stone, and some feathers, that can make some arrows. But if you want something intricate like a sword or a piece of armor, then you'll need a bit more. Or if you're starting to creating parts for a power suit or a souped-up car or a starship, well, then you might need, micro factories and power tools and droids to help out.
That's true.
So yeah, tools and supplies and time.
There you go.
Tools, supplies, and time. That's right. And so we have in Terrinoth, we have this setup where, it tells you that you can basically make anything. It's just characters can craft anything from swords to crossbows to clockwork devices with sufficient time, resources, and the skills. Mm-hmm. So what is the skill check, though?
Well, the skill check in this is going to be a mechanics check by default. Okay, you would use a mechanics check, and one of the things that you have to do to determine your difficulty is figure out the rarity of the item that you're going to create. And once you know that rarity, you divide it by 2, and then you round up. And that would be the number of dice, anywhere from an easy to the formidable check.
Yeah, that's one reason why they have rarities of 1, 0 to 10.
Yep.
Now, and of course, you might further modify that with setback dice or boost dice accordingly. Yep. But what would you say? And this is just a kind of a thought. What would you say instead of rounding up if that half one you gave it a setback die?
I could see that. I could totally see that. It makes it a little harder. It's not completely, a full purple die, which I don't know what really the odds or rules. I haven't done any of the number crunching on it, but I think that sounds reasonable to me.
Well, there's a 1 in 3 chance of getting a blank side on a setback die.
Okay,
but there is a 1 in 8 chance of getting a blank side on the difficulty die.
I would see that especially if, let's say, for example, someone's been crafting the same thing over and over. Instead of making an actual purple difficulty, make it just a blacksmith would not have that much difficulty crafting a sword if he's done it multiple times.
There you go. That's cool. So, I like that.
Yeah, it was just a thought I had. And one thing we missed is that the cost of your raw materials.
Oh yes.
Is going to be equal to half the cost of the item, so the book listed cost. So if we're talking about said sword, let's look at an item here. Maybe I want to make a nice quiver. I want to make a nice quiver.
There you go.
It costs 25 silver.
Okay.
So the cost is going to be half that.
So it'll be 12 silver and 5 copper.
Or half that if you're just dealing with silver, you could just round up to 13.
Right. 12 or 13, right. Yep.
But, the rest of the cost is
what's the rarity of the quiver?
The quiver has a rarity of 2, so the difficulty would be easy. 1.
That sounds reasonable to me. And what else? And then you can go and say, hey, I'm gathering the tools, I'm gathering these materials. I'll just buy the materials at in town, or go out into the wilderness and just gather them up, right? In some way. Now, if you're making something a bit more intricate, how about magic items?
Well, there's a sidebar here.
Yeah, there's a sidebar for that.
And basically, in Terrinoth, it says that magic items are extremely rare, and so, though there's no hard rules for creating magic items, there's a suggestion here, and it says we suggest a starting difficulty minimum of hard, 3 purple difficulty for even the most trifling magic item, with 5 purple difficulty for the most for appropriate for most. So
the formidable.
Yep. And honestly, if you were going to be doing anything with rune crafting, if you were crafting your own rune, I would totally make it always formidable. That's my opinion.
There you go.
Because rune magic is so much more complicated than just regular magic. But
still setting,
you can even make it. You can even make a whole adventure around finding this rune or finding a component to a magic item. I know that there's the rod of 7 parts or whatever, and like the D shift 7D system, right? Where you can gather them up and, create whole adventures on just gathering material. If one of your players wants to create like an uber hammer, you have to find this magical, maybe it's a meteorite up in the mountains that they have to go find.
A rare meteorite fell into a volcano, and he wants to have that as the core of his hammer because he wants a flaming hammer.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
A hammer made of uru metal.
Maybe. Well, as long as you're worthy. Nice. But I would see like any kind of rune magic, creating runes, you'd almost have, maybe nigh impossible for maybe a PC, since apparently dragons are the ones who are privy only to that. And,
I mean, because there are deactivated runes that you can repair, and I could see that as being a daunting or a formidable difficulty.
Oh, definitely. Then you can also have the players, they have to go through maybe ruins to find ancient scrolls or tablets that even hint on how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's recipes for these items or instructions from somewhere that you would need to maybe find.
The setting describes them as the dragons inscribing these runes upon these shards to bind them and limit a bit their power and control them a bit more. Yep. So, maybe they left notes. They were writing their own little cliff notes. Okay, I have to do this rune. I have to do this. Carry the EMC squares, and then then inscribe the rune. There you go. Boom! This one explodes. Oops.
Right.
I inversed. I didn't. I divided instead of multiplying. Oops.
There you go.
So that's high-end crafting. I mean, you've got the real high-end stuff there for your major magical artisans. But we've got another sidebar on the next page that covers the low-end kind of crafting.
Oh, yeah.
Fluffing.
Mm-hmm. And I think you just touched on that, Stefan, a little bit ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically this will be like using instead of mechanics. They suggest maybe sometimes, for example, survival. If he wants to craft a trap, a pit trap or a snare or a spear, or like in my example, arrows. He's down a couple of arrows. The nearest town is 3 days away, but he needs more. So of course Legolas, will use some of his bow or archery skills and craft some arrows. They won't be durable, but at least it'll do for his quiver.
Mm-hmm. Or as a GM, you could have him, and again, that would be a survival check.
Yeah.
Or you could, as a GM, if they have the time and they're not trying to make something crude on the fly, you could have them make the survival check to find the supplies and then craft with the mechanics check.
Yeah. Either way, whatever works for the situation or how you want to go about it.
So that last sentence in that sidebar is pretty interesting, though, too. That the GM may spend a despair on any check involving this item using, crafted with survival to break it or make it become unusable.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I like that. That's kind of neat.
That's it. So no matter what symbols come up, play with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's got French written on the side. It says fragile.
Yes, that's right. It's fragile.
It's fragile, eh?
So when we do when we make a check like anything else, we have a table here, which kind of gives us some guidelines to follow, how to spend our advantage, triumph, disadvantage,
threats and despairs.
Threats and despairs. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I like some of them. Mm-hmm. Some of them can be used like for multiple times. For example, if an item has a limited ammo quality or otherwise limited in use, you can use 2 advantage, and your character makes an additional item.
There you go.
So because he was able to find proper materials, like I have enough sharp stones to make 2 arrows, bonus, and every 2 advantage you get 1 more item. Or triumph, if you want to use a triumph for that as well, which is kind of neat.
Yep. I do like spending double... Oh, go ahead, Tony.
Nope, go ahead, because you're going to read what I was going to read.
What was that? Double triumph?
The double despair.
Oh, the double despair.
Go ahead,
you read it. Go ahead, you read it.
So, double despair. there is a terrible accident and your character suffers a critical injury, or at the GM's discretion, some related narrative event can occur of equal distress. Your character's anvil explodes. The smithy catches fire. Poison gases spread throughout the village. Man, I hope someone rolls double despair on a crafting check sometime. That is like story fodder like you wouldn't believe.
And then he just turns like, but I was just making arrows. What the hell?
Let me guess. It'll be a gnome tinkerer, alchemist that creates like this poisonous gas that now the town has to be freaking abandoned.
Yeah, I could see Dale's character Kevin trying to do something like that and having that result. And I'll jump into a little story because in another game I ran one time, there were no crafting rules, but the character botched crafting something in the rules that I had made up on the fly, and they were trying to create a transmutation potion while sitting in an outhouse.
Oh no!
They botched it, which to me said they poured the potion down the toilet, and then
are you kidding
me? A turd golem crawled out of the toilet and attacked the entire party. Chased them all through the town. It was huge, and it was calling the person who created it, "Daddy, Daddy."
You heard it here, folks, on Finding the Narrative. Even you can spend a spare on poo golems.
Yeah, that's right, turd golem.
Turd golems. Or poo elementals. However you want to call it, it don't matter.
It's a shitstorm either way.
It's a crappy time for the player, but
yes, it will.
Wow.
Wow.
All right. No, what would you like in there?
What
the
I like
two triumphs?
I was gonna do the two triumphs, but there is the one, or the two despair. But then the one despair, whenever the item is damaged, it's damaged in additional steps. So it's kind of with that survival skill, right? You can completely destroy the weapon if you create one. But with this, if you just have like a normal sword, right, and you roll a despair when you craft it. Oh yeah,
the sword is brittle. A couple more hits and.
So I've been watching Forged in Fire. So there's what do they call them? Shunts? Not shunts. Oh crap! Darn it!
I've watched a few of those.
Those are pretty neat.
Little mishaps. Somebody's like, "Ooh, he got a couple of threats right there."
That's right. You're trying to fold your steel, but you didn't like clean it first, or when you put the pieces of steel together, or whatever.
Or just hit too hard, a wrong angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, so speaking of that alchemist, shall we go into maybe talking about how alchemy is kind of different here?
Yep.
I think one of the main things. Oh, you know what? One thing we missed was the time it takes. Yes. So the time it takes is 1 day plus the number of days equal to the rarity of the item. And you can spend advantage to reduce that time to craft by 1 day. Or for myself, sometimes I do multiple successes makes things quicker too. So, I mean, it's kind of up to you, I think, as a GM to rule on that.
Yeah, because it just takes one success to say you crafted the sword. So maybe convert 2 or 3 of those extra successes, to equivalent of an advantage.
Right, yeah, you did it in a day or something, right? But so that leads me into the main difference is when you're brewing a potion for, like, say, alchemy, it's 1 hour plus a number of hours equal to the rarity. That's one of the big differences.
And you use the alchemy skill instead of mechanics.
Yep, that's the other one.
And an alchemist's lab or kit is required in order to try.
Right, you just don't get a boost die for having the right tools for the job for an alchemist lab or kit. You need those tools. So if you have a player like Stefan that's whoring himself out for a boost die all the time, you say, no, sorry, those are required, not the right tool for the job in this game.
That's okay. Then you just, once you have enough money, you just buy the expert alchemy kit, which automatically gives you a boost die.
There you go. See, Stefan, you do find the boost dice, don't you?
Yeah. There's always ways.
And like with crafting normal items, with alchemy, we have a chart.
Yep.
Yeah, these are kind of neat.
Chart 2-17 on page 114.
Yep.
And it covers everything from a single advantage all the way to double despair.
Which is actually, I kind of like this. I like the single advantage. A character who uses a potion heals a strain or a wound in addition to whatever normal effect. So maybe you're drinking an antitoxin, right? To prepare yourself for a poison or whatever like this. But when you drink it, you heal a strain or a wound. I think it's determined when you choose it, when you create the alchemist, when you create the potion. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I really enjoy about the Genesys method here is when, if you played a rogue in D-7D, your potions or your poisons that you used, if you played an assassin, they always had a set difficulty. It was written in stone what the difficulty was, all that. There wasn't a lot of change to that. You went and looked up the poison you wanted, you got the difficulty of the saving throw against it, done. Well, in this, you spend a triumph when creating a poison or extracting a poison, and you upgrade the difficulty of checks to resist the poison's effect once. You can spend a triumph on that. Yep. So it makes a more potent concoction.
Nice. So that was going to be my question. Do you use mechanics or alchemy to do poisons? And it looks like you use alchemy when you create
alchemy.
Poison.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. You guys have any other favorites?
No, I like the double triumph. Choose one other potion of lower rarity, whatever is more common, and add its effect to the potion you're creating. So the potion that allows me to fly for a while also, makes me more difficult to hit, for example,
my potion
or heals
of invisibility is a healing potion also.
Exactly.
That's cool.
That could be cool.
And of course, if you roll 2 despairs, if you don't want to blow up the alchemist lab, you could say the potion is beneficial, but they're poisoned by it.
Yeah, as well.
And then, that healing potion heals your wounds, but you're going to take a shit ton of strain because you're poisoned.
Yeah. Or my invisibility potion, like Tony's example. Also, like, ooh, it's not going down well. Ooh, my intestines are burning.
You got Montezuma's revenge from this potion.
That's right, because he made it with milk. Your rogue is lactose intolerant, and he made it with goat's milk. So
he's farting all over the place, so making it be a little easier to detect. Your enemies get the boost die.
I do kind of like the character who uses the potion is disoriented for 2 rounds. I was just about
to call that. That's my personal favorite.
Oh, it is? Cool.
I see that as like the potion has a euphoric, almost drug-like effect.
Yeah, baby.
And so that's a single despair. You can have this potion have a euphoric, drug-like effect, and they're disoriented for 2 rounds.
Which disoriented, again, that's adding a setback die to all checks, pretty much, right? That's what disoriented is, yeah.
Waving his hand in front of his face like, woo, vapor trails, man. Cool.
or your archer's getting ready, takes something, he's getting ready to shoot, he's like, just starts grabbing at the spots in front of his face,
Damn fairies in front of my eyes.
Trying to catch the butterflies, that's right.
All right. Now we have a couple more paragraphs here. We have. Go ahead and tell us about other potions and elixirs, guys. I didn't read that one.
Other potions, elixirs. Let's see. I have to go to the.
Yeah. So basically, it's one of those things. These other potions and elixirs, if it's not on, it's you're not restricted to what was listed on. What did it say? Page 102 to 104. There are potions listed there. You can make up your own. You could maybe combine some stuff. And I think it's more of you just work for a GM on that, and they'll have the final say on the difficulty of the check.
If you're a veteran gamer, you remember potions from 40 other game systems. Pull one out of your cap, so to speak. What do you think I was going to say?
Yeah. So here's one. So here's an example. The very last sentence in this. For instance, a poison is intended to render a character or a target unconscious. could function just like a regular basic poison, but it inflicts strain instead of wounds. If you don't want to outright kill them, just knock them out. So
yeah, poisons can have different effects. Yeah, they can just have putting someone to sleep or actually killing them, but it doesn't have to be death.
Yep.
Sometimes you want to capture that guy, and so. That's one way of doing it. And, yeah, some are regeneration and protective tonics. Your defensive magics, bottled courage. So making you better able to resist fear. So,
yep.
They're good starting points for
kind of things. Yeah.
Well, exactly. So usually these are almost like minor effects of magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we have the next section here is alchemy ingredients, and I guess that kind of goes. They just talk about you may send them off on a quest to go find these ingredients in the wilderness or whatever. Maybe some ingredients you can't purchase, and the ingredients for a potion cost half the price of the final product. And then it says with the rarity half of that of the desired potion or elixir rounded up.
The difficulty equal to that rarity.
The difficulty, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So
and at this point, we also had a bit of listener feedback from Nicholas Green on Facebook. He says, I'd be especially interested in any tips on alchemy or in collecting materials in an interesting way. I'm always worried I will bore my players with the collection of materials. And I put, if you're bored with making them hunt for materials, use advantage and triumph on other checks to gather them coincidentally.
That's a brilliant idea.
There's a great list of checks here. Survival, of course, perception, vigilance, negotiation. You could find them in a store that way. Okay. Charm, someone may give you something here's a small unguent for the potion. I see you're an alchemist. Oh. Or leadership. People could even in underlings would be like, "Sir, I found this."
Yeah. And I knew you were looking for something like this, and I found it.
Advantage and triumph rolled on those other checks can be used to just put the materials in your players' hands. And maybe if you want them to be using crafting and they aren't, that's a great way to put those materials in their hands and give them the idea to do it.
Right. Yeah. So if you have your scout make a survival check to track an enemy, right? You can say, hey, for those couple of advantage, you actually see what? King's foil, the king's weed, to make like a healing potion or something.
That's it. That your friend, the
alchemist,
the druid,
and there's you can even have things like alternative recipes that you could give them. Okay, yes, you're used to your players they're looking for king's foil to make a healing potion. Well, okay, maybe they're given an alternative recipe by someone that's another less rare ingredient that they find walking along the road as they travel, and it was a triumph. That'd be a good one for a triumph, and say in a negotiation check or
King's
even
foil. This witch hazel is much better.
Right, and it's much more common, but the recipe is rare, and therefore only a handful of people would know that this common ingredient that's just everywhere to be gathered can be used to make that potion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And even some of these skill checks might, these advantages and triumphs might just give them some information on where to find the next ingredient. Maybe if some ingredients are rare, it's like, oh yes, we've heard that there is a manticore living in some hills nearby, and maybe that's what they need. The poison extract of the manticore's tail. Well, there's one living nearby, and he's terrorizing our village.
And then there's also one last thing. If your players, you really want to move your story forward, and your players are really wanting to, I've got to find the ingredients to make this potion. Have them flip a story point. They found them. Done. It's over with.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's perfect.
You could, as a GM, you can just wave it and go, "Yep, you found that manticore horn at a local swap meet."
There we go.
Yeah, and I think that's a completely reasonable, unbalancing or balanced kind of way to spend a story point. You're not going to worry about about it. Yeah.
No, the idea is that they want the potion or unguent or whatever alchemy product.
Yeah, they want to roll the dice and make their check.
That's it. And then they'll be able to use it. So moving on.
Right. And so that's pretty much the crafting rules we have in Terrinoth.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty simple. It'll cover crafting of most items in a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
But there's other settings for Genesys.
Mm-hmm. Like our newest setting. What's that, Tony?
Shadows of the Beanstalk. Android.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Android was such a big book, they couldn't include any crafting rules in there for crafting items.
But they have rarities, right?
But they have rarities.
But they have prices of things, right?
They have prices.
And time exists, right?
And time exists in that realm too.
So there you go. So you can craft anything.
That's it.
That's
Use
right.
these
You
rules for it, really.
just bring them over, make it appropriate, work with your GM about how to spend the advantage and the threat. You know, not everything's going to make sense using the original charts, but if you wanted to craft a mundane item in Shadow of the Beanstalk, it can't be that much more difficult than doing so in Realms of Terrinoth.
Yeah, and you can use like if you want to kit bash together a computer, right? Like if your runner is in a, like, you know what I think of? I think of that movie. What was it? Was it Johnny Mnemonic, where he went into this place, to this store, and he just started putting things together, you know, and created his own little connection up to the web. That's a crafting check, but it's using computers instead.
Yeah.
Just use common sense with it. Yeah, I mean, it's perfect to do that.
Well, yeah, and you'd have one guy who's into firearms. Maybe he has a small machine shop and he makes his own crafting checks. You know, he has the right tools. He's got a machine shop, arc welders, 3D printers. If you want smart guns, circuit boards, and laser sights. So to determine the cost of, you know, what kind of gun that he wants, just use one of the stock guns in the book.
Exactly.
You want something a little different? Fine. You know, we'll tweak it. You know, and depending on the advantages that you roll or threats, we'll see. You know, you add a hard point. The gun is inaccurate for some reason, or might blow up in your hand later on. We'll bank that despair for now.
Exactly. Now for ice and icebreakers, it's a little bit. It's the same, but it's a little different. And I have kind of a set of house rules that I use for ice and icebreakers. If the players are making it, crafting check just like normal. And we actually did this in our last episode of the brewery where I had Jamie's runner make a crafting check to craft a piece of icebreaker that he needed. And figured out the amount of time he was going to need to do it, figured out the cost of it. You know, then the rarity to write the program.
I would probably use with alchemy, you know, based on hours instead of days. If you're going to craft ice,
yes, if you're writing programs, you don't need days.
Probably
you need
hours. Yep.
Was it, and did you have him roll his hacking skill?
He was making an icebreaker, so yes, he was
hacking.
Hacking. If he had been making ice for his own rig, he would have used sysops.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
And then if you have an NPC that's crafting custom software, the easiest way to do it is to apply, instead of just change the software the way you need it to, one minor tweak here and there, and then apply their adversary rating to the difficulty of the check against that. If it's the player trying to get past their ice, particularly, throw their adversary rating into the code, and
and those checks are going to be average, right? You know, to break ice, it's average. So I mean, you have an adversary 1, adversary 2. You'll be, you know, 1 red, 1 purple, or 2 red, which is still a decent check. But you'll have that chance for despair for them to get
that's it,
praised
because Yeah, because that custom firewall is pretty nasty for whatever reason. Yeah, they made it specifically for his system.
Right, and if your player rolls, again, if your player rolls when they're crafting the icebreaker, if they roll a bunch of advantage or they roll a triumph or two, feel free to kind of let it copy some of the abilities of another piece of ice or do something just a little bit different. Maybe it keeps the ice that it breaks down for an extra round. Right. Things like that.
Gives them a boost die. I think we mentioned last night when we were talking. Gives them a boost. Looking at this this alchemy chart. Spend one advantage, adds a boost die to their next alchemy check. This icebreaker gives them a boost die to their first time they use this icebreaker.
Yeah. So it ties up the system a little bit, giving them a boost die to try and break or access another part of the system.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now cool. for the last little bit of knowledge I have we have to share. So we've been, we've had this other game, the sister game to Genesys. It's been out there, I don't know, a few years.
Sister or crazy uncle?
Crazy mother. I don't know. Perhaps
uncle. Uncle is crazy, yes.
Yeah, crazy green uncle.
Yeah, that's the Star Wars game. And these crafting rules came from that game.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that if you don't want to just use the Terrinoth ones and you want to get in depth with how to do a specific type of item, like armor or a weapon, there are books. Each one of them, I'm going to list here. We'll start with armor. Armor is available in Keeping the Peace, which is a source book for Guardians.
And it's on Destiny.
The Force of Destiny line. And that is on page 90. And just to give you an idea, these are modern armors. This is for Star Wars. So you've got segmented armor, which would be like your
Brigandine.
Yeah, your Brigandine. It's going to cost 2,500 credits or 2,500 units of measure. It's going to it's going to have a daunting difficulty, and it's going to take 72 hours for you to make it. And then it's got some base stats here: a +2 soak, +1 defense, 6 encumbrance, and 4 hard points.
Now, if I remember correctly, in that crafting system, you had to choose a template, if you will.
Yep. And that's what I was getting at.
Oh, okay, cool. Go for it.
In that system, you choose a template, which gave you all the other stuff that you needed, which was the cost and the time and the difficulty of the check and a basic profile for it. Yep. That gave you that, and then it also gave you a hard-coded difficulty. And so that was vehicles, and then, for armor. Then for vehicles and starships, we go over to the Age of Rebellion line, to fully operational source book for engineers, and that is going to be on page 76. And yeah, I lost my email from Ty.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I have to bring it up here in a minute. But we have the same thing. You choose a template. There's a lot longer time involved in building a vehicle. It's going to be weeks and months depending on the size of the vehicle.
Yeah, Ty's question was, how would you like a mech/Zoid in the game from first step to last? Or how would you make, I guess, a mech in the game from first step to last?
And if it was in a setting where those things are common, I would use these rules. If you're in a setting where those things aren't common, that would be an entire adventure, in my opinion. But in a setting like that, you would go on page 79 here. There's the walker template. That's going to be a walking vehicle. A Zoid or a mecha would be that kind of vehicle. And that's your template. It's going to have a silhouette of 3, a hull threshold of 15. It's going to have a sensor range of close, pilot, 1 crew pilot, encumbrance capacity of 2, and 9 customization hard points. And then you would go from there. and begin crafting the vehicle.
Yep.
And there's a sidebar for maximum speed for vehicle based on its silhouette. And it's very detailed. And I would suggest to Ty that you go to this book and build from the ground up there. Now, if you're just building something as a GM, you don't have to follow these rules. Just make it the way you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if your players want to build something like that, here's the place to do it.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. And then everything else we have examples of all in one book.
Which are the weapons, your cybernetics, and your like automatons. What book are those? Droids.
They're in
it's Edge of Rebellion, or Edge of the Empire book.
Edge of the Empire, Special Modifications, a source book for technicians.
There we go.
And it begins on page 74 and goes all the way through page 85. And that includes brawl and melee weapon crafting. It includes ranged weapon crafting, droid crafting or automatons. You could use it for golems if you wanted to. Or androids in an android setting. Gadget crafting if you're making... that's basically your normal little device like a comlink.
Yep. Or your little flying droids or whatever.
And then cybernetic crafting at the end. And all the same thing. Choose a template that gives you a hard-coded difficulty and the cost and the time it's going to take. And then a chart listed right there with it to give you examples and ways to spend your triumphs, your advantage, your threats, and your despairs.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate that, Tony. Finding all those pages and such.
Well, I have all these books.
Yeah, I know, me too. I'm a completionist. I have them all myself.
Right. And, folks, unfortunately, there's not PDF versions of these, but you can find these books out there. They're available on Amazon. They're available at your friendly local game store.
Yeah, FFG's website, I'm sure.
Yep. And they're great resources for Genesys as well as, hey, you can play Star Wars too.
Yep. And they did announce a new book, gear and tools or whatever, more gears coming out for Star Wars.
Yeah, and I bet you they'll consolidate all the crafting rules into that book possibly.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's just cool. A thought.
So that's crafting in Genesys, everybody.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to mention that there is in the core rules. I mean, we wanted to go over the Realms of Terrinoth, which really takes these rules from the core book, creating an item to another level. I mean, because there's an armor cost. You're adding soak and whatever.
Right on.
I think we went over this in our last gear show anyway. To do this anyway, so.
Yep.
Cool.
So. You want to go set the tone?
Let's go set the tone.
Let's setting the tone.
Welcome to Setting the Tone, folks. This is where we talk about a section of one of the books of Genesys and read kind of the fluffy bits, the dessert parts. This is where we get your juices flowing for the creative portion of the game.
Don't say juices. That'll get Stefan excited.
But we decided...
When Chris talks about his meat.
Hey, 20 pounds of ribs, man.
There you go.
Watch it.
That's a lot of meat.
There's a lot of meat.
So, yeah, when we last visited Terrinoth, we were talking about the elves.
Yep.
And now this time, now that we have Stefan with us, we decided to talk about the younger races. And that's the troubled rise of the younger races, and it begins on page 29 of the Book of Terrinoth and goes clear through to page 33.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is basically the time directly after the elves had their big split, and they had the War of the Shadow Tier.
Yep.
Yeah, the 11 tribes kind of at war with each other, with the one of the tribes becoming the Deep Elves or the Dark Elves.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Deep Elves. And the Daywolves.
The Daywolves.
Daywolves.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And so there was this, shortly after that, and you're not sure what caused it to happen, but the portals that were opened with the tiers to the Infernal Realm flooded the realm of Terrinoth with infernal power and created the younger races, dwarves,
Yes.
orcs, and humans, for example. There's others. Like
I forgot reading this now.
and
That
the gnomes,
dwarves, orcs, and humans, they all kind of came from the infernal power that was released through. That's interesting.
It wasn't just them, though. That you've got the gnomes and the catfolk and goblins and other races. Just those are the ones that are mentioned.
Who cares about gnomes?
I don't, but maybe somebody
Just
does.
kidding.
Just put a little red hat on them and stick them in the garden.
One of our
That's right.
11T1 listeners might.
They might. That is true. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's pretty interesting.
Yep. And so the elves, being concerned about the birth of these new races, decided, they had a big what to do about it. They had to sit down and talk about it and have a debate. Probably lasted a year since they're elves.
That's right.
And they decided that they would let the younger races live. How kind of them.
Yes.
And develop their own civilizations. Dragons weren't so
No.
pleased with the birth of the younger races.
That's right. Yeah, they
No,
weren't too
but-
happy about that.
No,
So-
but they still didn't do anything about it. They're just like, screw you guys, we're going home.
That's right.
Packed their bags and went home. They
Yeah.
went back to the rocky crags of the far
Yeah.
north.
Yep.
To which we still say thank you very much.
Exactly.
Who needs a dragon around every corner? God.
Yeah.
So then we had this time, what they call the Years of Hunger. What's that about, Chris?
Well, there was a great cataclysm that nobody knows about, and what caused it, and it was like quakes and upheavals that kind of wrecked the world, and
tsunamis and
just
whatever.
cataclysmic events.
Cats and dogs living together.
Exactly, kind of like our
sin.
primordial machina, right? World
Yeah.
kind of tore it all apart and whatever. It tore the lands asunder. Some say that the infernal energies kind of did it, or that it was probably the work of the Daywell or Daywell, the deep elves that acting their revenge on the world. I personally think it was the elves, their elven rites designed to seal all the portals shut, and it just backfired on them. Or there was some mishap. That's what I believe.
Maybe it could be multiple reasons depending on your game.
Exactly.
Combination of.
If you wanted to set your tone of your game to a Conan type time frame where
Yeah.
men are savages and are primitive, and civilizations are small and resources are meager, the Years of Hunger would be the perfect time to
It
do
would
that.
be. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tribes of orcs running around on their big creatures. Think Dothraki hordes. And,
There you go.
even the
But what was
dwarves would be not as civilized either, living in their mountains or hills and coming down to pillage.
Right, and they say, and the scholars are saying, in the second paragraph here, talks about how this cataclysm happened like several thousand years after the elves arrived in the mortal realm, and in the wake of that destruction, it almost kind of lifted, humanity, the orcs and dwarves up to play a bigger role in shaping the world, shaping the history, which is interesting. I kind of like that. Put the world
maybe
in
that
hardship, and these younger races rose to the challenge.
Well, maybe that infernal energy helped these, maybe ancestors of these races evolve faster.
Yep.
from monkeys or.
Well, the necessity of surviving in such a harsh world would push you forward too. It push the wheel of industry forward.
Well, it's that necessity being the mother of invention. Okay, we need to develop weapons and armor to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves.
All these damn lava flows. We need something to protect us from that. How about stone roof?
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
Stone walls and stuff. Yeah, that's it. That'll help. And we need to grow stuff. We can't just hunt and hunt and hunt until there's nothing around. Well, what if we grew some stuff in this land here, and water it, and every season we can make bread out of this stuff. Wow.
And then speaking of what you mentioned, like the Dothraki, right? Which are the tribes, the marauding barbarians and whatever. They that's kind of where the race, the humans kind of came from, I believe. And it looks, and this last paragraph and the next paragraph, last paragraph of 29 and the next paragraph talk about how the humanity kind of spread from the roost steppes into the lands that are now Terrinoth, where you have that. And, because Terrinoth, they had the places for them to survive, like the pools and lakes
arable lands, forests, was less harsh than the roost steppes, encouraging agriculture, river trade.
They were able to create farmsteads and villages and such. And
it rose. And then way. Small villages rose into cities, and eventually, better structures there, castles eventually to repel the hordes or whatever opponents they may have.
Sweet.
We get over on page 30, we have the sidebar about the dubious myth of to recorded history. So this is about the time where actual history begins to be recorded by people, either through verbal legend or through actually writing it down. And so this is where the scholars kind of Greyhaven kind of they draw the line here. Everything prior to this is just elves being hoity-toity and
cryptic.
And cryptic, and you never know with an elf whether you're getting actual history or whether you're getting some sort of allegory.
Yeah, poem.
So
I don't want metaphors of my history. I want facts, right?
That's it. What the hell happened?
Yeah. And so anything they consider being a real event would be anything that occurred around the time of the Great Cataclysm and the Years of Hunger, and then onward.
Yep. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I like this. I like this next part. The early history of the dwarves.
My favorite section of this whole book, by the way.
Let's talk about it, Tony. Go ahead. Start it off.
Well, I like the fact that again, it's written in the first person. Like it's a scholar who's telling you. Yes. And the first thing this scholar tells you is, so elves, they're really secretive and cryptic. Dwarves just won't fucking tell you anything.
They don't put that exact words in here, but that's effectively what they're saying.
Pretty much. It took a lot of alcohol to probably even deliver information.
Which is
It took this scholar getting a sailor, a female dwarven sailor, drunk, and putting things together from the rune scribes guild libraries in the dwarven homeland. But it took that much to get like the early history stories of the dwarves. I thought that was great.
And one of the coolest things, tell us about the Epic of Helka the Bold. Okay. This is neat.
Helka the Bold, amongst the dwarves, she was a skilled miner, and she had a daughter by the name of Valnir. Her daughter Valnir grew sick, so Helka refused to accept that her daughter was going to die. And so she searched deep into the heart of the Molten Heath, as it's called, which is the land of dragons, to find a dragon and demand that it help her, or beseech it, whichever came first, that it help her. And fearlessly, she faced this ancient dragon.
Yeah, I could see a smog-type dragon, right? I mean...
And, I could see this bearded woman standing there shaking her fist at this dragon. You will help me. The dragon gestured to the walls of its cave, and Helka saw claw-carved runes covering the rock. The dragon would let her use the runes to save her daughter, but in turn, the dragon took her sight so that she could not pass the knowledge on to others. So she learned the runes. She took them back to the village. She saved her daughter's life. But then, being typical to a dwarf, she went back. She felt her way back to the dragon's cave with her hands, then hand studied and copied the runes to bring them back to teach everyone.
She memorized them all.
She memorized them.
Yep. Yeah. And she taught them. This is cool.
And that's what brought rune crafting to the dwarves. And the dragon was very pissed about that. All dragons were pissed about it.
Underestimated. I wonder what happened to that dragon. Maybe he got punished.
I could see that dragon being around still deep in the crags.
I don't, because Killzak killed him about 10, 12 episodes ago with one swing.
Oh, is that the dragon that he killed?
That would probably be the one. Maybe. But I could see that dragon being around and having a grudge against dwarves, and that would be a great storyline for an entire campaign.
Or maybe Killzak, was helped by other dragons, like kill that dragon because he has loose lips.
Yes, exactly.
He's the one that let it all go.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's interesting that these ruins had all of this knowledge. I mean, when you're thinking of not just like the rune crafting, when you're talking about magic, it had secrets of metalworking, the riddle of steel, if you will, farming, masonry, and anything else you want to pull from that you could think of. What else could have been in those runes?
Written language.
There you go.
The dwarves could have been traditional verbal storytellers prior to that. You don't really know. It doesn't say.
Nope. Exactly.
All kinds of skills.
And they call this the Karak Dome. Dome? How would you pronounce that? Karak?
Oh, that
Dome.
Karak
Doom is
Karak Doom is the gift of dragons.
It's what they called the new home they built after they got all this knowledge.
Oh.
That's what it was a city.
Right. The gift of or gift of dragons, yeah.
Yeah, they built great cities of brass and basalt in the mountains overlooking these verdant lands that they had found, and they called their home the Karak Doom, or gift of dragons in the dwarven tongue. And for many years they worked to build the realm of stability and peace, and Helka the Bold continued to study the secrets of the runes, and her daughter Valnir became the great leader of her people.
That's cool. That's a neat story.
That was not meant to last.
No. No.
Because, like they do, dragons don't take too kindly to getting their stuff stolen.
Nope.
And whenever you have a section called the War of Fire, it's not going to end well.
No, it's not. It's not a marshmallow roast. That's for sure.
So the dragons, being upset that the dwarves stole their knowledge, invaded.
Yep.
And though the dwarves fought valiantly, it says, such a war could only have one outcome. One by one, the cities were burned.
Now this is cool. What happened here? This is so they have this. So the dwarves just mass exodus, right?
Right.
Gotta be leaving, and this Black Ember Gorge, and Helka. Old and frail Helka led an army. Blind, old and frail Helka led an army against the dragons, telling her daughter to get these people out of here and get them out. And what she did is she unleashed all of the power that she remembers of the runes to destroy this pass and bury and kill some dwarves.
Many dragons.
Well, many dragons, and of course the dwarves that stood next to her. Man, would that be a freaking epic battle.
That's badass.
That is badass. Man, I wish I had a mom like Helka.
That's where all the budget,
man.
That's where all the special effects budget comes in.
Yep, absolutely. So where'd they go? Where did all these dwarves go then? After this battle with the dragons?
Not Disneyland, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, if the dragons are going to burn your cities down, if you keep building them, what do?
You keep
Build them underground.
Yeah, you hide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go where they can't go.
The dwarves moved into the treeless hills and steep ravines of south that bordered the Molten Heath to the southwest, and eventually they went deep underground and built the city of Yurthrite's Forge, named as a reminder of the glory of their former kingdom. But then they also renamed this mountain range where they built their lands, and they called them the Dunwar, which means sanctuary in Dwarven.
Yep.
And the children of Valnir became the first of the Deep Lords, or the kings of the dwarves.
That's such a cool story.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah, and it's riddled with background, cool information that you could use for a great campaign. Maybe finding one of these old dwarven cities, these old ruins that the dragons had melted.
Catacombs, cellars.
And just the wealth of brass and rune knowledge that could be found there.
Maybe there's a rune that has a template or an instructions to make an item that your crafter, your master weaponsmith, needs to craft.
Yeah, to kill that pesky dragon.
Yes. Somewhere in the ruins of Karak Doom. Now, what I really like about the introduction section of this book is this painted glass looking art. Stained glass art. That's so cool. And the picture we have here on page 31 is, where, the humans are stepping forth now.
Yeah, probably the first king, as it mentioned in the bottom of that page, King Arcus Penacor.
Yes.
And what do we know about him, Stefan? Tell us about him.
Oh, let's see. He's after we talk about the dwarves, then they mention humanity steps forth. So humanity, of course, starts building, getting a bit more civilized, let's say, developing civilization more and more. Although they don't keep calendars or write yet at that point. But then it says, we trace the start of the human calendar to the campaigns of Lord Arcus Penacor, who eventually becomes one of the first kings, first Penacor kings. And a noble chieftain from a small village. In the later years of years of hunger, his homeland faced constant attack by, of course, the Orcish raiders, and he would become a terrible bloodguard knights. So he and his men would try to protect his realm against these Orcish raiders. Probably, encouraging and leading his people, and that's probably why he was named king.
Yep.
Yeah, it says he forged a confederation to pool resources and fighters to secure a safer land. So basically built a kingdom out of nothing.
Yep. And that was like 2,000 years ago, and that's where they date their years starting from that time. And what's cool is that he raised all these funds, created these ancient resources, the resources to create temples and works of art, keeping the people safe. He created the first chivalric orders. Maybe that Order of the Nine Pillars might have been started with this guy. The one that when I was playing in your campaign there.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, beginnings, like in any philosophy, can start somewhere.
Yep. And then
as it does, history is not always bright and shiny.
It doesn't smooth.
When the years were hunger, for nearly 300 years, when the years of hunger were over, for 300 years they flourished.
Yeah.
But then came King Zszree Penacor, and he was every sign of proving worthy of the crown. He showed it, and his capable queen Rhea was celebrated in court for her intelligence and charm. And their infant sons Ferengall and Ferendon showed every sign of becoming the finest princes in the Penacor line. Mm-hmm. However, love tore the realm apart. And here we have the King Arthur story.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And that's kind of what I was thinking, like Pentadragon, Penacor.
Pendragon.
Pendragon. Yeah, I mean, we have the King Arthur, Guinevere, Lancelot story right here, man.
Almost.
Queen Rhea and the king's greatest friend and highest counselor, Rusticar Lorimor, or Lorimor,
yep.
had fallen deeply for each other, and despite their respective vows to husband and throne, and when the king learned of this, his priests and advisors begged him to show no mercy, warning him not to tolerate such a betrayal. But instead, he still loved his queen, and he grew melancholic instead of wrathful.
Yep.
He was sad, and he annulled his marriage and forever banished the queen and Rusticar from his kingdom.
Yep.
And a large group of the king's subjects joined them in exile. And so now we have the kingdom splitting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And their kingdom became the kingdom of the Lorimor Empire.
Yes.
That they're going to talk about
west.
later, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ferengall, his son, starts to,
Act out?
without his... Mom was a bit of a hoe. Decided to run off with her new boo.
Mm-hmm.
So Ferengall decides, you know what? I'm going to start hanging out with all these ruffians over here, robbing and raping and pillaging.
Yep, the father's household guard. In fact,
I'm going to be a bad boy.
Started carousing with the guardmen, man. They corrupted the fuck out of this kid.
To the point where he became violent and nasty. And it says one tale here. It says, on the occasion of the prince's 16th birthday, the court jester performed a verse penned for the occasion. When Ferengall realized that the first letter of each line spelled out the word bastard, he flew into a fierce rage, summoned his friends, and they galloped from the castle, calling a pox to take the morose king and his gossiping court. And they never returned.
Which makes you think they spelled out bastard. Was Ferengall?
Yeah, maybe.
Raya and a Rusticar is he really a Lorimor?
Yeah,
maybe
he might be the bastard son of Rusticar.
Mm-hmm.
But him and his men fled into the lands of Neracall, and would become the first of the lords of Neracall. Sorry, no, there was a lord there already.
Yes. Yep.
And that lord was he placed a bounty on them.
And messed them up, baby.
Yeah. And it showed basically the king's guards and the knights who had followed Prince Ferengall captured them all, killed them all, and
Except
locked
the son.
the prince in a tower.
Exactly.
Locked the prince in a tower. So now we have the man in the iron mask.
Exactly. But that man in the iron mask, in this tower, there was something else in that tower that he kind of communed with, if you will. Said that there might have been an infernal shade
hidden in a daywall portal, nestled in an attic nook in the tower.
Yep.
It was something he made a deal, I guess, with the prince.
Yep. And he made a deal with the prince. The melancholy dad came, and said, "Oh, well, why don't you just put him to death?"
Yep.
So they did.
Hung him.
Hung him, threw their bodies in this near, the swampland, which was near the tower, close enough to the tower, where we have a so thought for dead. Prince came back.
Yep.
The dread Prince Ferengall.
Yeah, so now we have Death Knights.
Death Knights, an undead kind of army coming back.
Well, he was no longer known as Farangol. Yet Prince Farangol and his companions had not yet passed from this world. Their bodies lay putrefied in the swamp, and the shade in the tower had not forgotten his promise. Invigorated by dark magic, the bodies of Farangol and his companions rose from the swamp, and he became Lord Farangast.
Farangast. Nice.
As a foul wretch came to be known, and went to terrorize the surrounding lands with his skeletal followers.
Yeah, so all of his
plague
buddies
upon the region.
So was he okay? So then he was still alive, but it basically raised his dead buddies, the dead guards, right? That were killed. Is that what I'm reading here?
I think they all were brought back.
I think
Farangol definitely died. It's just that he was maybe the first one to rise up. And brought his buddies back.
Yeah, he became a Death Knight. That's a pretty kick-ass story for your undead armies, man.
Oh yeah, and you could, we'll maybe find out later about their fate, but maybe they're still around. Maybe they still haunt the land. Maybe that infernal shade has the ability to raise them again if they did get taken out.
And again, and again, and again. Yeah, baby. And that was like 1,700 years ago.
And you could have them return as a plague upon the land again and have a whole campaign about finding the infernal shade and stopping it from raising them again after you've slaughtered them. Or sent them back to their graves. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
very cool.
That's very evocative. I like it. I like the world building here that they're doing.
Here
this is
we
good
go.
stuff, man. This is good stuff. All right.
And so that was pretty much where I stopped. Did you guys stop there as well?
Yeah, I did too. So we'll continue setting the tone in Terrinoth.
Yep.
Future episodes,
most definitely. Okay, so are you ready for our favorite part of the show?
Yeah, I've been waiting for that.
You betcha.
This is the part where we all get naked.
And roll dice. Okay, then.
Speaking of dice, I need to get my dice out.
Okay, you do that, Stefan.
All right, welcome to part 3, which is the favorite part of our show, called Advantageous Threat. Threats. So this is where we set up little situations and assemble dice pools and basically try to trip each other up.
Yes.
And this week we'll be concentrating to link up with our main topic, crafting checks. So Tony, lead us off in crafting advantageous threats.
This is funny. I like
So my character, Gorgo Ragemantle, an orc primalist shapeshifter, went on a were-hyena rampage, a.k.a. he rolled a double despair. He is just, and so he doesn't know where he's at. He's just now waking up, naked and alone in the wilderness. Don't know where his buddy Killzak is, but he hears the sound of a pack of ghouls approaching.
And smells them probably too.
Oh, yeah. And he wishes to hastily make a crude spear using his survival skill. So, using the roughing it rules, I'm going to make a spear. I have a survival of 2 yellow.
Okay.
And the difficulty of crafting a spear, which is a rarity 2 item, is going to be 1, or easy.
Cool.
Right.
And we're not even going to worry about that. We won't even worry about the cost of it because
No.
you're in the freaking wilderness, man.
Right.
Oh,
You can find a stick.
have-
You can find a sharp stick.
I can find a sharp stick and sharpen it on a rock before they arrive. That's all.
Yeah.
That's
all
all I'm
you do.
hoping to do.
And if you're lucky, maybe a sharp rock.
There we go.
All right.
But you're in a hurry.
Definitely in a hurry.
And so maybe not the proper tools to to get all this done. So at least it's set back.
Naked, no tools. So
naked, no tools. Yep.
Yeah.
And
so a setback die.
Yep. I as a GM in this situation, I'm already being a dick, throwing a pack of ghouls on you. But I'm going to flip a story point anyway.
Well, yeah, because they may they may hear you crafting and.
Well, Gorgo wants success, so
Yes.
he is also going to
Flip one.
flip one.
All right.
Sweet.
And, you know what? Oh, I should have thought of that. But anyhow, I could have made this with primal magic instead. But I just rip it out of the ground. But anyhow, we'll do it this way.
Maybe
It would
he's too
increase
tired.
It would increase the difficulty by one, but maybe
But you wouldn't
I
be
don't have
making
enough
a-
strain.
Yeah,
There you go. Well,
still
yeah,
suffering
dude.
too much strain. So
Waking
there.
up naked and alone, buddy.
So I have currently got a 1 green, 2 yellow, 1 red, black, and a black in my
Alright.
pool.
Well, that sounds
Anything
good to me.
else?
No, that
If
sounds
they're
good.
ghouls, they're not out in daytime, are they?
That's true. It's probably dark.
Yeah.
So I'm probably trying to do this in the dark. I'll throw in another setback die.
There you go.
All right, here we go. Vroom. All right, setback dice came back blank.
Sweet.
And
Okay.
I had 1 failure, but I had a grand total of 4 successes, a triumph, and a despair.
Woo!
The 1 failure
Awesome. Yep.
came from the despair.
Yep.
So, I have 4 successes, a triumph, and a despair.
All right. So if we use our table on page 113 for spending.
Okay.
threat,
So first
despair
off,
stuff for
I am
crafting.
going to spend our despair first because I'm thinking it's going to be an inferior spear.
Okay.
So you won't be able to gain that superior quality on it because it's already inferior. So it'll be a
That's
setback.
fine.
That sound good? Yeah. So that's how we'll spend the despair on that.
However, I really like the fact that this is I found a rare wood to make my spear out of, and though it may be inferior, it does 1 more damage.
There we go.
So I'm going to spend my triumph on increasing the value of a numerical benefit of the item by 1, excluding damage. Damn it. All right. Damage, critical rating, soak, or defense I can't do. Damn it.
I'm going to do this.
All right, tell you what.
We can do a
Tell you
narrative effect here, though, if you want,
Yep.
where you
And
can.
I find some poison to dip it in. Or no, poison wouldn't work on undead. That's not going to work.
No. You. It is a. Let's say that it is a. The type of wood. I like that. The type of wood that you picked is a type of wood that makes that a lot of crosses or a lot of holy relics are made out of because it has the ability to like quote unquote turn undead, if you will. So whenever you're fighting undead, they're with this weapon, they're going to get setback dice to hit you. Maybe.
Nice. Yeah. I like that.
I mean, it says it's a narrative
holy plant.
It's a whole. It's like a holy.
It's a wood that's sanctified, maybe preferred by one of the gods of Terrinoth.
I mean, you could think of it as giving you the defensive quality versus undead. Defense
That's
1
great.
versus undead. How about that?
Doesn't. I'm not restricted in having defensive. Because it's not one of the restrictions that I could add that to the item.
Mm-hmm.
Narratively, it's a blessed wood.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, now those of you out there are like, but it costs 2 despair or it costs 2 triumphs to gain an item quality. But think about it. This is only versus undead, so it is a specific. You're not always going to have the defensive quality. You'll have it versus undead.
I'll only have it
You like
probably versus the ones in this encounter.
Yeah.
Well, there's that too.
Because this thing is probably pretty brittle.
Well, it's inferior.
Unfortunately, there's a crack. Yeah.
You might need it. All right. So then, next session, next podcast, we'll roll initiative. No.
All right, Chris. What are you gonna make? What have you got?
Well, what I have a dwarf weaponsmith, mastersmith, named Dizlag Stronghand. And he's wanting to forge a dwarven war sword, as pictured on page 112. Yes, everybody. On page 112, that is Dizlag. I'm just going to call it now. And that's what he's doing.
There you go.
He's going to make that sword. Now, a sword is rarity 2. It costs 200 silver coins. The dwarven craftsmanship quality adds 2 to the rating, and it doubles the price of the item. So, we're talking a rarity 4 sword, and it costs 400 silver coins normally. So he'll need 200, so half of that, 200 silver and materials. Mm-hmm. The rarity sets my difficulty at 2 purple. And of course, with Dwarven Forge things, it'll add 1 to the damage rating, but it'll increase the encumbrance of the sword too. And you can see in that picture, it seems like a little more hefty of a sword. Now,
and initially, you plan to spend 5 days making this, right?
Yes, because
it's going to take.
It'll take him 5 days to make it. He has an intellect of 3. He has a mechanics of 2, and he also has the tier 2 inventor talent, which he gets to add a boost die to create new items. So it's going to be 2 yellow, a green, and a blue versus a 2 purple check. Costing him 200 silver, and it'll take him 5 days. So what do you guys want to do there? Now he's in a forge, so he's in a forge in the city.
Is this his forge or someone else's?
I was thinking that it's probably his forge. So he's in his home forge. He's forging this thing. It's been commissioned by one of the, what do they call them? The wing guard? What do they call them? The riders. Maybe somebody's commissioned it for him. Somebody's commissioned him to do it.
So then I would say he'd probably get a boost die, another boost die, just because he's in his own forge.
Perfect. Okay. And he's really under no pressure as far as time wise goes, because he told the guy, it'll take him about a week.
Yeah, but that's when he spoke to his customer about that. But I'm going to be a mean GM and flip a story point.
Yes.
Because now the king himself needs a special dagger soon, because dignitaries are coming, and he needs one of his better smiths to forge a nice dagger as a gift for the diplomat. So he's putting pressure on Dizlag.
On Dizlag. Oh, okay. So there is a time crunch.
Yep. Finish the sword so you can get onto the king's dagger.
That's it.
Awesome.
Or he keeps sending emissaries like, "Are you done yet? Are you done yet?"
Oh yeah, they keep bugging me. Bastards. All right, so how's that look? That look good?
That's good. Yep.
Okay, Here we go. So we got 2 yellow, 2 blue, a green, a red, and a purple.
All right.
Okay. Well, we do have... So 1 failure came up on the red die, and 1 threat came up on the purple die. Those get canceled. So we are left with a simple success and 2 advantage.
Nice.
So we're going to say, so I think spending, because I got to get this done pretty quick, I'm going to spend the 2 advantage to reduce the time it takes by 2 days, I'm thinking.
That's it, because you can use the advantage that way for multiple times.
Yep, you can select it multiple times. So it only takes him 3 days to make it, and so he could get working on the dagger.
There we go, making the king very happy.
We want to keep the king happy. I want to keep my forge, and the rent that I pay on it is, the taxes I pay are like really low.
Yeah. There we go.
All right, Stefan, what you got, buddy?
All right, I got inspired for this character little situation from a setting that I think Chris discovered a little while ago, the cowboy dinosaurs setting.
Yeah, cowboys and dinosaurs.
Yeah. So
by the way, I think I saw a movie. There's a freaking movie out there, I think on either Amazon Prime, that is cowboys and dinosaurs.
Oh, well, we'll have to see that. Yeah. All right, so my character named casts a long shadow a Cherokee Brave, he needs to craft a saddle that will allow him to stay stable while using his Thunderstick while riding his Triceratops named Delicate Dancer.
Nice.
Delicate Dancer. Double D's.
Yes, when she's at a full run.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great. I love it.
So Shadow is his friends call him just Shadow for short. Mm-hmm. Is a skilled leather worker for his tribe. So he's got 3 intelligence and crafting, let's say, mechanics of 3. And he's got a knack for crafting.
Oh, cool.
Especially leather. But he needs to modify his existing saddle to do this. So extrapolating from the Realms of Terrinoth book, I just saw some equipment for horses. They don't have actual saddles, but they have saddlebags and barding. So use that a little bit. The cost in a Western setting might be like $20 back then, but it would still be a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Back then. And rarity 4 for a custom-made saddle for a Triceratops.
Oh, absolutely.
So dividing that by 2, the rarity by 2, gives me a 2 purple difficulty base and 3 yellow.
Right. Well, I'm thinking that. So, is this stay stable ability? Is that like he's making like a Mastercraft saddle or something like that?
Kind of, yeah. He's trying to improve on it.
If he has a saddle, then he can stay more stable. Is that what you're thinking, or is it a special?
Right now it's just a regular saddle that just keeps him on his Triceratops. But he needs something where even if he moves or when she moves, he can stay a bit more stable. He's seen he's maybe seen some advanced, white man's cavalry saddle, and he wants to improve his own to emulate that.
So he's basically crafting an item he's unfamiliar with.
Yeah, exactly.
He's only doing it from memory of maybe having seen one from a distance.
Right, maybe seeing one up close, but only is in tatters, maybe damaged when he took down by a lucky strike a cavalryman. I
would say that's worth a couple setback dice.
I think so too.
1 or 2. 2?
I'd say probably 2.
Yeah. All right, 2. Luckily for his knack, he can remove those 2.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to flip a story point because you're going to be riding a freaking dinosaur.
Well, that's it.
And the saddle could break.
Well, you never know. She's named Delicate Dancer because she's got these moves sometimes. Sometimes
the double B's, man.
Oh, that's it. She's hard on the leather. She's hard on the leather. All those spikes and hide. Mm-hmm. So
okay.
But she's been. Yeah, but he's working with her. He knows her proportions and stuff, and so he can try and compensate for that.
There we go.
So maybe some quality material he was able to scavenge. So maybe that gives him a boost die.
There it is.
There it is. I have to stay true to my colors.
Oh my gosh! Sure, yeah, get a boost die, you ho.
But I'm not flipping a story point. All right, so let's go. All right, let's see here. We've got 3 threat and a failure, which will be canceled out, I think, by a few of these. These 2 take out the threat, and then these take out the threat and the failure there, leaving me with 2 success and 2 advantage.
Very nice.
Nice.
All right, so how would you like to spend your 2 advantage?
So with 2 advantage, I think you maybe... Let's see here. Would you maybe decrease the item's encumbrance by 1? Mm-hmm. So it fits really well on Dancer.
So she can remain as delicate as a butterfly.
Exactly.
Continue to
prance.
Prance light of hoof.
Yep, exactly.
I'm trying to picture Triceratops prancing.
Dancing through the tulips.
Because I know what my dog looks like when she walks and prances, and I can just imagine a Triceratops doing the same.
Yep. There you go.
Wow.
Great. So that's it, folks. That's crafting in a nutshell. It's usually handled in one check per item, and you don't have to, unlike other systems out there where you have to do 2, 3, 4 checks just to make an item.
Yep.
Simple, easy, and narratively amazing.
That's right.
Although,
And
as a GM,
normally-
if you want to make it a bit more complex, maybe it's multiple steps. Yeah, you have to forge the blade, then you have to do something for the handle or bind a runestone. You know.
Well, that's the greatest thing about this system. It's flavor to taste, man. If that's what you
it.
like,
You know
you
it.
can totally tweak it.
That's right. And, you know, you don't necessarily have to be dicks like Stefan and I.
No.
Flipping story points as a GM when they're making crafting checks. Now, if you're that gnome alchemist and you want to go for that double despair, yes. The only way to get a double despair, though, is to give them two reds.
Hey, if you're brewing a potion in an outhouse, I am flipping. I'm sorry. Because poop column.
Or you're making that automaton with 4 arms and and the jetpack.
Oh my gosh.
Let's go home, guys. Come on.
All right, everybody, that's our show for tonight. And we're just going to shout out to our network, the Nerds-International Network, all the talented folks on there creating the content for all of you to enjoy, like the Wild Eye, the Brewery, the Murder Hobo Show, the 3T RPG Podcast, Imaginary Ramblings. I believe, Stefan, you said you were going to get on that with Matt sometime maybe this week or something?
Hopefully this week, I record a short show about how role-playing games have changed from when I was young and
young
to now.
whippersnapper.
Yep.
From the Dark Ages.
When I was young, we actually had to carve our bones from the bones of our enemies.
or from the Triceratops horns, right?
Yep.
Then we have Mr. Mean Speaks. John, he puts out a lot of reviews on things I don't even know exist.
Yeah.
Which is
Now he has put all of his YouTube videos, his reviews, he's now putting them up on Podbean.
Oh, cool. Very
his
cool.
podcast. So
very cool. Then we got Thoughts of a Barbarian, the Role Player's Imaginarium, and the Dragon's Toolbox.
Yeah, it's still up there. There's not much going on, but still there. And Macho Men in Tights might be back later on. Uncle Jay is taking a little break.
Yep.
For personal reasons, but
so congratulations to all of you, all the stuff you guys put out. I know you work hard, and it's great.
We appreciate all of your efforts, and I think the network covers a lot of different things. From the Murder Hobo Show with Rifts, and us with Genesys, the Wild Eye with Savage Worlds, and everything in between with everyone else.
That's right.
And then there's the melting pot that is the brewery, where you never know what Jamie's going to do on any given week. So,
you might. Hey, if you want to learn how to play Legion, if you want to learn how to play Star Wars Legion, I think he's going to be putting up some war reviews, or I don't know what he's calling them, something like that.
Battle reports.
Battle reports.
That's it.
Battle reports.
Excellent. Yeah, right now he's into tabletop strategy games and losing.
Nice.
So, Stefan, you got anything important you want to remind us of?
Just, we spoke of maybe at the top of the show. So, Con on the Cob, if you can attend the convention, October the 3rd to the 6th, still plenty of time to get tickets and maybe book rooms, whatever. If you're in the area, then you don't need rooms. But come over and see us, and we will give you awesome hugs from all of us.
That's right.
Yep. And if you're lucky enough to join in on some of our games, or even if you're of drinking age and you can show me ID, I might even give you a beer.
That's it.
That is
exactly.
Right. And I might even make you an Angry Balls.
Yep. Oh, I just have one thing to mention with Con on the Cob. Well, there's still the Kickstarter, of course, so you can always get your tickets that way. Encourage the con. So So just want to, any listeners who attend, we will warmly greet you with hugs. And 3 out of 4 nerds recommend hugging. Of course, do not ever operate heavy dice mechanics while hugging. And just want to give out a warning. Length of hug may vary and may cause side effects. Side effects may include, but are not limited to, discomfort, awkwardness, a desire to pull away and run, nausea, vomiting, warmth, acceptance, love, attraction, arousal, swelling in the groin area, if male, and sense of questioning one's sexuality. If you experience any of these side effects, sit down and have a beer with us.
That is wonderful.
Wow. That's awesome, Stefan.
Yeah.
I hope you didn't. I hope you encouraged them to come and not scare them away with that one.
Well, they've been properly warned. So of all these things that could happen.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
Exactly.
All right, so if you want to reach out to us and maybe write a love letter to Stefan, you can contact us at findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me and Stefan on Facebook, Finding the Narrative. Nerds International, all of the shows and us are over on MeWe as part of the Nerds International group, and we have our own page over there.
Yep, send us an invite.
Yep, and we'll gladly add you. Just make sure you have a little bit of info on your profile, otherwise we're going to look at it, go up, spam.
Yep, even if it's something as simple as yes, Chris, I am a DM. That'll get you an invite right away.
Or yes, Tony, I am a GM, because Chris never looks at those things anyway. So
yes, I do.
Or yes, Stefan, I am a gamer. J1.
That's right. We have a Twitter presence over at FTN_Genesys, and you can frolic with Stefan over there.
Yep.
And you can listen to us or tell your friends to listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, watch us on YouTube, we're on Google Play, and now available on Spotify.
Well, we will say you can watch us on YouTube, but the only thing you'll see is here.
You'll see our logo.
Yeah. You can actually watch us on the brewery. Yes. On Twitch. Tony's, I think you're running Thursday night, right? We got another one Thursday night? Sweet.
Yep. We'll be live on Twitch Thursday night, and later that'll show up on YouTube on the brewery's YouTube channel.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, this is Tony. I keep saying it. Keep rolling those dinosaur bones.
There you go. And this is Stefan saying, don't forget to ask for those boost die bones.
And remember to be cool on that Triceratops, baby. And just have fun. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Adios.
Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast, is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned in this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. Copyright 2019, all rights reserved.